A 1000mg MDMA trip report, sent in by Cole. I've just watched your video about you sharing your experience tripping on MDMA/MDA, and until now, I thought I was the only one who had experienced such a thing. Your video prompted my research into why it happens, and also inspired me to share my trip report with you. So here goes. Me and my friend got hold of some 350mg MDMA ecstasy tablets, Reapers. These are some of the strongest pingers I've ever come across, and they really pack a punch. So, me and my friend decided we would venture into our city, Birmingham, which is one train ride away from where we live, and spend the evening getting pinged just for the sake of it really. At this point, I'm at the beginning of my rave phase, and I've taken pingers about 5 times on separate occasions before this night. Once we arrived in Birmingham, we headed straight for the Wetherspoons, where I dropped a full pill, and she dropped half. The following 2 hours were pretty standard, and nothing extraordinary happened, so I'll skip to the good part. Once I start to come down, I'm thinking to myself that I'm nowhere near ready to go home yet, so I have the wise idea of dropping 2 more. So at this point, 1000mg of MDMA has been consumed, but the first pill had pretty much worn off, so I wouldn't consider it a full 1000mg dose. I'm really starting to feel the come up at this point, and my eyes just can't stop darting around. My body is rushing, and my emotions are flying high. We decide to sit down on a bench outside Tesco car park. The road in front of us consisted of small, 7-foot trees planted at regular intervals between the 2 lanes. One of these trees, however, was broken and lying slightly on its side. It was at this point where my visuals began. I stare at this tree to see it suddenly stand up and raise its pincers in the air. You're probably thinking, what fucking pincers? It's a tree, you knob. But I assure you, this tree completely transformed into a lobster right before my eyes. I'm in pure shock and confusion at this 7-foot lobster, which is just standing there waving its pincers and moving left and right and vertically, as if it's doing some sort of Hawaiian dance. I ask my friend what the fuck is going on over there, and she tells me that it's just a tree. I look away to see if anything else is changing forms, but nothing. Only this one specific tree had taken on another form, and everything else was completely normal. When I look back, now the lobster is even more detailed. I can see eyes and a face, and it begins to move towards me. At this point, we decide to get up and go into the Tesco car park, which was lit up with lights since it's night time at this point. We sat down against the wall, and I realise how totally fucked I am. Everything is unreal, and I'm seeing heads peek over the tops of all the parked cars, and then dipping back down immediately, almost like a game of whack-a-mole. This proceeded for another 20 minutes until I decided to get an Uber home and go to bed. In bed is when I fully peaked, and my hallucinations really took off. I lay with my eyes closed, only to be greeted with a wave of sounds in my ears. I can hear voices, some familiar and some not. I heard the sounds of the city, car alarms, my mother shouting my name, and a whole range of other things of which I cannot recall. I remember laying there and thinking how truly amazing it is that my brain was able to conjure up such original sounds, and I wasn't really in fear either. However, the sounds were so overwhelming that I had to open my eyes to give my brain another sense to fuck with. So I do exactly that, and when I open my eyes and look at my ceiling, what I saw will stick with me forever. Demon faces would appear out of the dark and come flying inches away from my face, sort of how Voldemort is portrayed when he apparates. These demons are whizzing around my room, and I can hear them screaming and shouting hellish cries. I look at my desk, and the lobster returns, a repeating hallucination on MDMA for me. I was happy to see the lobster, and when I tried to get closer to it, it suddenly turned into a 6-foot Chinese dragon and started circling my bed. I saw the fire it was breathing and the scales on its body. Its tongue drooped out of its mouth as it performed a show for me, flying around my room in the most interesting patterns I have seen. This experience was something brand new to me, since I'd only taken acid once before this, and only experienced melting and kaleidoscopic effects, as opposed to seeing creatures and beings in my room like I did on MDMA. Somehow, I was able to find my way to sleep during this time, And so the experience was over. What inspired me to send you this was watching your personal MDMA trip report, and I was in pure shock at the similarities, not only between our trips, but the story itself. I was in sixth form at the time, going for an identical phase as you, raving and pinging almost every weekend, Lamau. This is the first time I've actually heard someone have visuals like me on MDMA. I always ask people at raves, and it seems it's very rare for one to have such a trip like ours on MD. I hope you found this story interesting, and I apologise for my lack of writing techniques. Thanks. Happy tripping. Cole. Thanks for sending that in, Cole. That's so fascinating. I've also done the same where I've been at raves back in the day when I used to use MDMA quite a lot. And yeah, if I leaned into the higher doses, it would always just result in these incredibly vivid hallucinations until I'd actually like focus in on them, and then they'd sort of disappear. But how, like you said, with the whack-a-mole heads, that's what it was like for me. I remember one of the first times I got wired out, I was in my mate's car. It was the first time I'd ever had like a really high dose, and yeah, I was hallucinating like these people on a wall doing like dances, and when I focused on it more, they'd sort of just go away, and then I'd look at something else, and then I'd see like a body in the back of the car, and then as I kept looking at it, it just reappeared, disappear. It was honestly so strange because no one I've ever met has ever really said that they've experienced anything that weird. I mean, some people I know have said they've hallucinated like bats and etc. But nah, nothing to the extent that we've experienced. So yeah, if you've got to the end of this video and you've had these sort of weird hallucinations, please let me know in the comments because it's so fascinating. It's definitely, I think high dose MDMA trips are something that are really uncommon to see on in the trip report world, so it will be really fascinating and intriguing to hear more about it. And because at the end of the day, when you're younger and you're told about like drugs and psychedelics, you say, oh, you take psychedelics, you'll be hallucinating like flying dragons, man, and they're coming at you. But it actually doesn't happen on them. It actually happens on MDMA, literally like how it happened to you with the Chinese dragon. So that's honestly so mad. Thanks for sending that in. Really appreciated it. Hope you're having a good day and take care.